Welcome everybody to the UDR cast, the recovery podcast, season 2, and this will be the first episode of our next season. And we're here with Bernie G and Bill W and myself, Tom Forsyth, here today to discuss the path of recovery and the different perspectives and different experiences in recovery. We're glad you're all listening here today. Bill and Bernie have been doing a lot of work together, and so we have Bernie here today. Bill, do you want to welcome our guest for us?
Yeah, thanks, Tommy. Welcome, Bernie. Good to have you here today, my friend. And yeah, like Tommy said, I know you fairly well, and I'm really happy to have you here. So, I'm looking forward to our talk today.
So how many years of recovery do you have today, Bernie?
I have came into this program of Alcoholics Anonymous June 9th, 1996. So that would make me 24 years. And
24 years, wow. And how has your recovery developed through the 12 steps? Bill mentioned that you went through some maybe a little bit of dry drunk. So why don't you walk us through a little bit of when you first came in, and then kind of how you kind of got into the dry drunk stage in the beginning?
Well, like it says in our book, to be rigorous and honest, in chapter 5, how it works. That's one thing that I failed to do in the beginning of my recovery. I really desired at the beginning, early stages of easier, softer way. I went on, I guess for me, let's just say after I've learned to really let go of the substance, which was alcohol. And from there, it developed, they say going nuts. It's kind of funny how I was taught about nuts was not using the steps. And that's exactly that talk about dry drunk. I went through, I did a first set of steps within our first year, and I was not rigorous, honest. I left out the meats and potatoes, the ones that they say will take us back out. I'm grateful that I didn't go back out, but I got to the point of where I just absolutely, I hated my life, and I just wanted to die and contemplated suicide too. And then I came across a second sponsor, and he basically, he didn't force me, but he knew I was done, and he suggested that I attend at that time a very different approach by using the 12 steps to be done in 12 hours at a panel. So yeah, after I came out of there, I was let's just say it was quite earth shattering, and from there it definitely, I really got to see my my disease and how it affected every area of my life, and how my part I played in it, and understanding the isms of alcohol, and how it's freed my mind to open up different a doorway within Native spirituality.
I just want to say, you say earth shattering, and I don't know that everybody would understand what that means. I do, because I know the desperation and with the willingness and then the open-mindedness to try something different because of how you feel just even sober, and what these 12 steps can do. And it does feel like it's earth shattering. Can you kind of describe like a little bit what happened, and what, I know you said you did the 12 steps in 12 hours.
Yes.
So what changed in that 12 hours that felt almost earth shattering?
Well, during that whole process, it was like a panel meeting discussion, and on one side of the panel, there were people who went through the steps and who did what was suggested, and on the other side of the table were the participants, and they basically did every step introduced it right from the big book, and to explain it very simple and simplified version, because most of us have a difficult time understanding, interpreting the big book, right? So it was very simple, and each person on the other side of the panel who had that experience, they explained short excerpts of their life and on that step. And then the other side of the panel, people who didn't have that experience, they wrote down on how it's affected their life, and gave examples of where the powerlessness and the unmanageability, and then going into the next step, and then to the next step. And and then I guess what was really, really profound in me was that when I got to, I guess the fifth step, when the people on the other side of the panel, they shared their meats and potatoes, the ones that take them right out, and it gave me permission, and I really, really felt that I wasn't alone at that moment. That there are a lot of the experiences that they went through, the horrendous things that happened in their lives, and and some of the not so healthy things that we do, while we're under the influence, and even when we're not under the influence, those defects of character, they disclose those things with us, and it freed me. It freed me right to my core, to allow myself to be absolute vulnerable, and say, I'm done. I want to let go of this stuff that's really burdening me. So, and then to feel in a group of, there was about 20 of us, 10 on the panel side and 10 on the participant side, and to do it all altruistically too. It was, and that's what really shook my core. That that it actually can be done. And so from there, it opened up that again, like that whole different. It opened up a doorway to meeting different people through Native spirituality, and from there, it kind of took off from there. So
as you sat in front of the panel, and then the panel shared their own excerpts of their own experiences through steps 1, 2, and 3, I guess, of your guys' interaction. I'm taking a shot in the dark here, and I'm assuming you guys weren't talking about the substance at all. You were talking about the unmanageability or defect of character that hadn't been worked on, correct?
100%.
Okay, so as I've gone along in my recovery, I've come to a few things, or gotten to the bottom of a few things, at least to the way I understand it. And correct me if I'm wrong. Like, as step 1 in the Design for Living, like I share on the Big Book study, is I'm powerless over people, places, and things. And in the book on alcohol, it's I'm powerless over the substance, but I'm also powerless over people, places, and things. And if I keep picking up the drink, knowing what's always going to happen, that's the insanity of step 2 when we're talking about the substance. And God can restore me to sanity and allow me to never pick up the drink again, because to pick up the drink is the lie. And if I don't pick up the drink, then I got a chance. So as we look at the Design for Living, if I'm powerless over people, places, and things, and I keep allowing a person, place, or a thing, or a defect of character to go unchecked, and when I look at the patterns of what always happened with this defect of character, or allowing this person in my life, or not changing this part of my life, then that's the same insanity as the drink. And if I don't work on it, and I don't expose it, and I don't move to correction, it will keep causing me unmanageability. And if I keep living in that unmanageability, most people are sure to drink. You said you're lucky. And this phase of your development happened at 5 years in. So you started realizing some of these things that you needed to work on, and the insanity was very prevalent. And some of the other people shared their own insanity with their own unmanageability within their own defects or situations. And that's where step 3 really kind of comes into play, right? Is relinquishing this. But first you got to accept it. And first you got to be able to see it. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of people don't see these things because they're never exposed to some of this deeper work. Luckily, you found a sponsor who understood what you were going through. And you had talked about suicide. A lot of people end up following that path of suicide because they've never found the solution for the design for living. So, did I kind of relay that correctly?
Oh yes, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So, the defects of character, and for people that don't understand, it's like we start playing God with anger, jealousy, fear. So these are some of the glaring ones: the dishonesty, the self-pity. These are what the book refers to as defects of character. And when we fall into this pattern of dishonesty and anger and fear, it makes us so crazy because it's defective, and it's actually blocking me from God or a higher power. It feels like a spiritual sickness, and that's exactly what they talk about in the book, a spiritual malady. And when this runs its course, even though we're sober, or even before we get into AA, it feels like we're just insane. And that's what Bill was talking about, is the insanity. But the thing is, we can't see it ourselves. And I think that's what you were experiencing as well. Until somebody else said, this is what it looks like to play God, and we have to quit playing God, we can easily see why it doesn't work, right?
Definitely.
And it will continue to drive our lives, and we don't know how to even get out of it. But something happens when someone shares their experience, that they've been through that, and this is how it affected me. And this is what I do with it when I give it to God, and I start to build good character through this process. And then my life starts to change, and the channel opens up, and then the opportunities start to open up, as it has with you. And I think it's brought you into a totally different direction over the years.
Yes, no, it's definitely.
As you got the validation through other people sharing their stories, and it gave you permission to get vulnerable with yourself, get vulnerable with somebody else, and put this shit out into the universe, there's a huge healing component to voicing it. And as you voiced it and got it out, cleared the channel some more, what happened next in your life? Did you continue to run with the program and get closer to God after that, or Creator? And then what else opened up for you?
Well, after that, like I really did. The service work through the fellowship, and the steps to program I'll call Exonymous. Like I did. I was very active in my early recovery. After that, I basically did what I was always asked of. I have to say that, when it did come to sponsorship, that's one thing I still kind of shied away, because part of that, I've learned through my character defects of, which I've learned over time, it takes time, because an example, I'll share a defect of character that sometimes is poor self-esteem. That was, and that shame, that underlying deep-rooted stuff that came out in my defects of character when I did my last set of steps. And so understanding, yes, I do have that, but it's a part of me, but it's not all of me. It is a part of me. And understanding that I knew at that time that through the altruistic work that we do, that I just knew a part of me that I didn't really need to really put myself out in the limelight, and I was, and then my direction where I went, through Alcoholics Anonymous and to Native Spirituality, like some of the elders, that I work with, most of them belong to Alcoholics Anonymous too, and their stories are kind of similar to mine. But their belief system is similar, that we don't have to be seen to be seen. And I've kind of adopted that idea too, and not desensitize of that I don't want to be seen. And so, yeah, of course, I'm only human. It's nice to be seen sometimes, but generally, like I really understand what it means. Like and to not be seen is okay, because most of my life growing up, I was never seen, but I've craved it. And I'm okay with that today. And I'm, I guess, going with that, learning with the program Alcoholics Anonymous, it's really brought light, to the dark that I learned from, and the light in the dark that I created. So
What are some of the things that held you back from getting in touch with your culture, your roots, and how did the 12 steps open that door back up for you?
Well, that's a really darn good question there, Tom. Oh my goodness, I could go on and on with that one.
Let's hear it.
Well, my father, he recently passed away back in April, but he died sober, and he was also an Alcoholics Anonymous since 1969, and he played a vital role in my life in early recovery, as well as Native spirituality, and also to some of us knows about colonialism. For some people who don't know, I'm the product of residential school. I lost my roots of who I really am. I've lost my language, that self-identity, a sense of belonging. And it was, AA was a catalyst that helped me to really, I guess, to help me to look within with that, and how it opened up the doorway to Native spirituality, because the way I was taught through my parents was Native spirituality wasn't a good thing, and I questioned, well, why? And I remember as a little boy, and why, but it was never talked about. And both of my parents my mother was in Al-Anon and my father in AA, and yet I got to really witness the actual dry drunk. And even though there was no drinking, I could really see the absolute powerlessness, the unmanageability in our home. There was no real growth. And I mean growth, emotionally, spiritually, mentally. It was very, if not very unhealthy. So my whole conception of even AA too in the beginning was very jaded too, because I grew up in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous, going to meetings with my dad. But I knew a little bit about Native spirituality, but yet I was taught that is not our way. So I had a lot of really I was torn in many different ways because I seen, because of what the jaded effect that has created on me through Alcoholics Anonymous. Was like, as a kid, I could see, well, obviously AA is not working because just look at my parents, and then obviously religion, Catholicism wasn't working too, because we would go to church every Sunday and put on this whole facade and then go home, and then the vicious cycle starts again, with the absolute pure defects of character, the sickness, so, and I guess an example of sickness was the verbal violence, was really projected upon me and my siblings. So it really it jaded me a lot, with AA, and that's why I really want nothing to do with it too, really. And I really didn't really want nothing to do with Native spirituality, because it was really it was taboo, and it wasn't a good thing. So does that kind of help?
So Bernie, you're kind of speaking my life a little bit. You're Cree, I'm half Cree. We met through my own prayers of my own asking Creator to show me my own culture and my path within my culture. And my story too is similar to yours, but different, where I had my life burnt down, and I was, a victim of our society, I guess you would say. The belief systems of our society, the ideals, that all of these things, this money, these houses, this type of stuff, material blessings will make me happy. But it didn't. And then I burned my life to the ground, and I came into the rooms, and I ended up starting with AA, the program, Cocaine Anonymous, Alcoholics Anonymous. To me, really, it doesn't matter what the program is. The basis of my life lies within the big book. And I started on the path. I did something similar to you as far as your panel, 12 steps in 12 hours. Mine was done more organically over a number of months. But then about a year in, after also suffering severe unmanageability, maybe it was 18 months acting out my own defects, I ended up getting to a place where, I was beaten by myself into a state of reasonableness. And I wanted to dig deeper and learn more. So I did. And then I got in touch with, I remember going to a powwow, standing beside a powwow drum. And then I felt it in my DNA. And I knew that was part of my path, but I didn't know anything about it. And I almost felt guilty of being an Indian that didn't know anything about culture. But I had opened my mind to it because I had met some people, and I was like, holy shit, I think my judgment of our people is very distorted, because I was very prejudiced against Native people more than any other race. And I am Native. But I was a victim of our society and belief systems. And that's what I saw. And then along the way, I started seeing these things differently, and it opened me up. And then I met you, and I just did a step 5 recently with my sponsor, and the step 5 was specifically on shame. And I realized in that step 5 that I spent my whole life trying to not be Native. I did everything I could to not be what Creator partially made me, which hence, why else wouldn't I drink? Of course I need to drink. If I'm not even true with who I am, I gotta drink. And this is the kind of I see in step 5s when I listen to them. People aren't authentic, truthful with who they are, and they don't know who they are. So this was a recent revelation, and I'm like, holy shit, I spent my whole life trying to not be Indian. I wanted to be white. I didn't want to hang out with Indians. I didn't want to interact with Native people. I wanted to get all the material status like white people did, because to me that seemed like the real path. And now that I've learned the truth, my truth today is, Native people get to know you, to talk to you, and their whole foundation before colonialization was based in humility. Everything was based in humility. The men and the women took care of the elderly and the children. Nobody was better than. Everyone played their role. They honored everything to Mother Earth and to the Creator. They didn't respect anything. They used all of the animal if they hunted it and used it, and everything was honored, right? We talk about in the 12 and 12, tearing down this faulty foundation of myself. My whole foundation of my life is built on self. That's what our society is built on out here. And I followed suit in that. And no one makes more mess of their life than me, alcoholic. I take this to the next level. So I have to rip out that faulty foundation and build upon a new bedrock, which is Creator, built in humility. Humility is the cornerstone principle of the program, right? And through this journey of learning who and what I am, it's taken me to meet you and join forces with you, and so yeah, man, your story was kind of pulling on my heartstrings there, and fuck.
It seems like in my experience and my experience working with other people is that at some point we're all trying to get relief from a craving. And I think the spiritual sickness fits so well because, we put up with a whole bunch of things growing up that pull us away from what we're supposed to be. And it's almost like we have a craving for this higher power, this connection. And all our life we're being told something that isn't true to us. And it starts pulling us in a whole bunch of directions. And then, of course a craving develops that we can't satisfy because the craving is for a connection. And the 12 steps has a way of developing that connection. But there's a whole bunch of stuff that we need to get rid of and abandon to a higher power. But Bill mentioned earlier, we have to be aware of it. Like, I don't know what to do because I've been running my life a certain way for so long that I don't know what to look at. I don't know where everything comes from. I guess I want to ask Bernie, at what point did the 12 steps open you up to your culture? Like, how did it happen?
It wasn't really into which was really we talk about making peace in the step 8 and step 9, and I had the church, the Catholic Church wasn't there, even Native spirituality wasn't there too, and to come to really is forgiveness. I really had to, and it's true when they talk about forgiveness, to forgive what people have done to me, my family, mother and father, the intergenerational trauma that has been created, the serious resentment that I had towards the church, and then eventually through my my disease of alcoholism and alcohol, the sickness, the sickness that I created and the things that I destroyed for myself, to become accountable to that. And in forgiving, really understanding forgiving, it catalyzed to want me to know more who I am. Where do I fit in this puzzle of creation, earth? Where do I... And what I've learned was, through walking this way, near spirituality, was it has brought other like-minded people, like really fast. into my life who were doing things very similar, who've had that experience and have done it before. And it's just like it was amazing to see that and to understand, that the white man is not my enemy. And if I thought I'm really messed up, I could just imagine, this has only been 500 years of colonization. I could just imagine my European brothers of thousands of years of colonization. It's like, oh my God, so it's taught me a lot about compassion. It's just not an Indian thing. It's a human thing. And on a bigger scale, that whole forgiveness and the understanding that how we really are, most of us humans are really programmed. We learn what we're taught. So it has taken me a lot, to really. But again, this stuff didn't happen overnight. Mm-hmm. It doesn't happen overnight. Maybe for some, may get that lightning strike, and far and few in between. But a lot of it takes time. Mm-hmm. However that time looks like, whether it's a year, 2, 10, maybe a whole lifetime. But we all have our growth spurts and levels, and when it does happen, it happens. And the thing is, it never leaves you. Mm-hmm. So and it advanced me to really, I guess, to I'm not as involved as much as I would like to, and I'm not as well adversed in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, but I understand the principle of it. I understand to its core and what it has taught me about honesty, accountability, which is what I really needed in my early stages of recovery, and where it's opened up our doorway to different avenues of service, and to a different life, a whole different life of how to live life more. And it's definitely, it's an amazing life today to live in this world here. I guess to find balance. We talk about how people hierarchy system. For us, for Native, I'm only going to speak on. I'm not going to speak on other cultures, but as being a Nehio, of mixed blood of Nehio and Dene, Blackfoot, and Anishinaabe, as well as a Japanese blood. I could only speak from my experience and my own lineage and my own blood, and how I've come eventually to educate myself, and how Native people, of those people, how we've learned is through a lot of non-interference. That's how a lot of us we learned. There was not that interference. And exactly what I loved about, the whole concept of Alcoholics Anonymous is, we are, it's attraction rather than promotion. I try to live by that, and I don't, and not that I'm being lazy. It's just when I'm called upon that help, when I'm called upon that help, and I'm called upon help a lot, but not so much because creators that open that pathway for me in a different avenue. But like what I say, learning from one another from a distance, that attraction. Like I see something in Bill, I see something in Tom, and there's something I like about it. There's a really good feeling. There's a connection right to the core of my soul that, I could see that, these men are really trying to make a difference in themselves and then, in their families and even globally within. So it really is. It's like I said, it takes time. It does take time.
So in the book, you said something that brought me into the literature, and it's at the end of the We Agnostics chapter where Bill tumbles out of bed and he turns over his will and his life over in that lightning bolt scenario. of turning your will and your life over. And then it says, no later vicissitude had shaken it. His alcoholic problem was taken away that very day, years ago. And then it goes on to say, circumstances made him willing to believe. What is this but a miracle of healing? And what I think that actually means in the literature, I think most of us, when we first read that, it's about not drinking. What is this but a miracle of healing? The circumstances made him willing. No, I think it's way deeper than that. As we learn how to turn over more of our life and our will over to Creator over time, and you had mentioned this takes time, as we learn how to turn it over more and more and more, and it's the circumstances in our life that actually become our teacher. And if we're willing, we can learn the lesson. And we can look at what something outside of us makes us feel. And then we dig into the feeling and look at the root and find out, okay, well, it's an insecurity based on something in my childhood or something that I learned or I was programmed with. Or the other flip side to that is being of service to help other people learn and heal what's wrong with them. So over time, the circumstances in life that allow us to build strength, build fortitude, to look at truth. Our truth may change as we go through these circumstances, but there is such an element of healing. And it's always the circumstances that are placed in our life. And I found with my own life, if I fail to recognize the lesson in every interaction or circumstance, that circumstance will be placed in my path again and again and again, over and over and over, until I learn the lesson, until I wake up and become aware, like we've been talking about, Tommy. Awareness in the growth is such a key. And then I'll finish with this. And then in that same part of the book, it said, he humbly offered himself to his maker. Then he knew. And if you know the original manuscript, Bill writes step 7, and to me, step 7 is ultimate surrender to the program and to Creator. It said, humbly on his need, offered himself to his maker, asked him to remove his shortcomings. And that's like humbly on your knees, holding nothing back, it says. And to me, when you get to that level of surrender and wanting to be the best, work for God, trying your hardest to be the best person you can, I believe that then you know that God will take care of you. So in your own life, as you've looked at these circumstances, you've gotten through the trials and tribulations of whatever the defect is, whatever the circumstance was, and you've also been of service in helping a lot of people. Do you see that the literature is kind of bang on with what is this but a miracle of healing that happens over time, dealing with circumstances and helping others? You have healed a lot of your wounds.
Oh yeah, definitely. They're parallel paths. It is right bang on parallel. That's what I love about the program. The steps, the action, and how it's directly linked to Native spirituality. And the only difference is with Native spirituality is there's no script to it. It's it's a self-discovery, and to kind of find other people in that kind of same realm with that experience, and through their experiences, understanding that it helps to catalyze where we want to go, I guess, in that avenue of growth. So,
and the story of Bill W., he reached a point of complete surrender at that point. But he did do a bit of work before he got there as well. And I don't, I believe that, there's always a bit of work and self-discovery, like you said. But, in my case, I remember the same, like you mentioned, I was suicidal as well. I couldn't stay sober, but I didn't want to be who I was when I was drinking. So, and I couldn't seem to figure out a way to stay sober or feel good when I was sober. So of course, I mean, my only option was suicide because I didn't know what the program had to offer. I had been to treatment so many times and detox so many times. I just felt like there was no way out of this thing. And even when I got to the program, I wasn't in a state of complete surrender. I was beaten and I was desperate, but I was not in a place of complete surrender. Part of it was because I didn't know what the hell to surrender. So I'm full of all these beliefs and these ideas and these behaviors that I've been running with my entire life. And I don't know if I was completely ready to let go of all those things. I wasn't. But I didn't know that I had to yet. And over the years and, through working the steps and some relapse, there was a point, I was a year sober, and I got to a place of desperation sober, that same desperation from when I first came in. And I got down on my knees and I just said like I was about to relapse again, and I could feel it coming. But I didn't know how to get rid of it. I was going to meetings, I wasn't really being open and honest with people because I still didn't know how yet. And I was still full of fear to do that, to actually speak vulnerably and be honest with someone. So I said a prayer of I desperately needed help and I didn't know what to do. And, about a week later, we were at a convention. And I was walking and Bill came out of the bathroom and I literally ran into him. And I had known Bill from the program, just seeing him in the rooms, but I didn't know Bill. But when I bumped into him, I knew that there was something about this encounter. It just struck me. And I guess I was open enough and willing enough to ask him to sponsor me. And then it took us a while, a little bit, like the first 2-3 weeks, to even figure out what the hell was going on with me, because I kept, I was so full of anxiety and I didn't know where it was coming from. I was busy with work, so I could blame it on outside things, right? I was busy with work and, somebody was pissing me off that day. So I thought it was because of that. And I'm trying to let this stuff go, but I don't know how. And then, I got to a point where there was something that I was really being dishonest about, and I couldn't really see that it was wrong. And I told Bill about it, and he said, dude, you got to be honest. And I did not want to. But I was willing and ready to surrender to this process finally after, since 2009 trying to do this thing. And this happened around 2 years ago, right? So it was a lot of trial and error, but I just had to surrender this part of myself that was unwilling to be rigorously honest and actually get honest. And since that day, Bill and I have had, my experience with Bill has been overwhelming. The gift that it has given to my life, to my family, to the guys that I work with now, because of that one prayer and then the willingness to actually be open to change and to do things that I didn't feel comfortable doing and to be something that I didn't feel comfortable being. Bill and I, now we have a relationship where is, probably one of the most important relationships in my life, because I wouldn't be here without him, and I know that he's a channel of God and a guy that's carrying a message and very passionate about it, and it's wearing off on me and in my life. And so I guess what I'm getting at is a moment of surrender, complete surrender to I don't know anymore, can be that thing that I was looking for. Because I was always looking for something to help. But it was actually the opposite of where I had to get to a place where I don't know anything in order to receive the help that I needed.
And to that, Tommy, and thanks for the kind words. Through my own prayers of desperation and of seeking, along comes Bernie,
Right.
waltzing into my life, right? And now I'm like learning a whole new way of working a program. And all the program is really doing is it's trying to get you to live with love, live with forgiveness, live with kindness, be true and authentic with who you are. And that's exact same parallel pathway as Bernie described as culture, as native spirituality. So as I've been directed by my creator, listening through intuitive thought and inspiration meditation, asking for these things, Bernie comes along. And then, I tried some other spirituality within the culture, but creators guided me to Bernie, and now he's like I look up to him, and I try to learn from him, and I try to follow in his footsteps because I know him fairly well, and I'm getting to know him better year by year. But so Bernie, as guys like me approach you, because you are a helper of creator in your own right. And I like how step 12 says in the original manuscript, having had a spiritual awakening as the result of these steps, we tried to carry this message to others, especially alcoholics. And you have carried this message to many others. And as guys like me come to you, how do you stay humble with some of the attention or some of the respect that you get and people wanting to follow the path with you? How do you stay grounded and humble? And can you speak on that a little bit?
Yeah, like I said, it's just it's all learned behavior, but it wasn't until my defects of character, because I'm so aware of them. Yeah, I'm very aware of my defects of character. That having had poor self-esteem. Obviously, over time, from having poor self-esteem to having too much, in early recovery, so you don't really know until you've kind of really experienced it, really. Either I'm on this edge or on that edge. So, and then eventually defining that balance really is defining that balance for myself. And I really had some pretty good teachers, and I still have good teachers in the program as well as ceremonially that really instill a lot of what I believe, and that non-interference and just allowing things to unfold the way they're supposed to unfold without trying to control people, places, and things. And to really accept, and because of it, I really understand. I know myself. I think I know myself pretty good through what I put, pen to paper. It really keeps me in check. Is this really of benefit to the people of me? Do I really, And then from what I witness from my mentors, they could be right in the corner in the back within a big room, and so much knowledge and so much humility and humbleness, and they don't need to put themselves, they know what they have. But it's how does one restrain oneself? But it really does come from really knowing oneself too, knowing it in one's mind, but also knowing it for myself, to knowing what I put on paper, and to become accountable to those things. I was that was a part of me, but I don't want to be like that anymore. So it really is. It's I'm okay. I really am okay with not being seen. That's fine. I understand. Where I guess I'm learning to understand more my role, where I kind of fit in this world. So.
So yeah, Bernie, as you walk along the path moving forward, what do you want to see in the world? What's your purpose? What do you try to bring every day to the world, and what do you hope other people will bring into this world that we live in, that at times seems really difficult, but at other times, depending on your state of mind, doesn't seem so bad. Like COVID's happened, and for me, it hasn't been a catastrophe. To me, it's really grounded me, and it's done a lot of great things for me. So I haven't seen like all the negative, like overtones of what's happening out there. It's just, I don't watch the news. I just kind of stay in my bubble. I help other alcoholics and drug addicts. I stay close to the people that want to stay close to me. And I don't let a lot of that shit influence my mind, the subconscious mind. So as we kind of move out from here, what do you want to see in the world today, knowing the times we're in?
Boy, those are big questions. I guess for me, really simple. That kind of corny, but it really is world peace. But the world is my world first. It's all starts with me. And, the more that I better myself, continually stay connected to myself, be of service, staying connected to the earth, and time to time looking within and reflecting on, daily on what I did. I think to some certain extent, it has definitely, like you say, we influence people, if we're called upon. And then, like we talked about, the attraction rather than promotion. People they'll see something different. It's like, what is up with her? What's up with them? There's something different about them, or her. It's like, oh my God, there's something that I don't know what they're doing, but I want that. I'm not sure what it is. Kind of touching in with COVID, with how I understand it. Yeah, it's here. It's a virus, and it's here to do what it's supposed to do, whether it was man-made, created, or whether it came from the earth. But what I've witnessed with COVID has done, it's definitely catalyzed to really see where people are in their lives. We always talk about balance, in Native spirituality. There's a concept mentally, emotionally, spiritually, physically, and it's not about. Like I kind of touched on it earlier about hierarchy, and it's not about that. When one of our elements are unbalanced, when we're too much in our mind, something else will lag within our body, how it affects our body. Everything's all interconnected, physically, physiologically, and then how that's connected to our emotions, and again, spiritually. And what I've witnessed, a lot of, and I'm not saying anything bad about people, because we've been programmed by society, and this is worldwide, and I could be wrong, and I hope I'm wrong, but in my own experience is that we're all programmed, we're all colonized in some sort to, we're programmed to keep busy, to stop us from really thinking about what's important in our lives, to stop us from really feeling everything in our bodies, the earth, and our surroundings, emotionally, to know what exactly is emotion and how to interpret it and how to use it in the most positive way. Spiritually, to stay connected with ourselves, to stay grounded spiritually, but into maybe to others and to whatever higher power is to yourself, and what I've witnessed is that, how it's really catalyzed a lot of mental illness, but it, that's a whole different ball of wax there, but it's just for myself, like what Bill talked about. Like I really don't live in a bubble. I'm pretty engaged still within the city, the greater city, and where I live, and again, like it's a good test to see where we are in our lives. Like for myself, like and where am I unbalanced, in my life, and how do I strive for that balance? But again, going back to the program and the steps like that, they're very powerful. Like because of those steps have helped maintain balance, and it comes to light when I am unbalanced, when I'm itchy bitchy and twitchy, like they talk about, when I'm going nuts again, I'm not using the steps, like, oh my goodness, who are my pillars? Who can I disclose? All these, the basic tools, the basic life, what I've learned, the tools from Alcoholics Anonymous, it takes me to there, but also it takes me from that point, it also takes me into spirituality and how they're parallel, and I could utilize both of them at the same time. Because again, like I said, I really am, I'm just like anybody else, but maybe just a few more tools that I practice daily. And it's just, I don't practice from time to time. This is a daily thing, and it's been years and years of years and years of unlearning, and then years and years to maintain, to learn that, and to evolve with it. And I talked about what I would like, really it is corny, that the whole world peace, because I believe that we had it one time, over the centuries, and it can be attained again, so.
Yeah, like our experience, I mean, when the lockdowns first happened, that's I'm very, very fortunate that Bill and I did a bunch of step work shortly before that, and it got me to a place of where I was very grounded and connected, and I'm very fortunate. And I remember phoning Bill when the lockdowns happened, because I didn't know what to do with myself. Like I was good, but I felt like I should be helping people. That was my first thought was this lockdown is going to drive people crazy. And my first thought was, how can I help people? And I phoned Bill. I said, like, what do I do, man? Like, what do I do in this situation? He's like, I don't know. He's like, there's this thing called Zoom. It's a video chat, and it was very new. And I think Zoom was, pretty new before the lockdown. Nobody really knew of it too much. He says, there's this thing called Zoom, start a meeting. And okay. And I had no idea what to do. And, we slowly figured it out and exactly did just that. A lot of people didn't know what to do. They started coming on our meeting, and we kept it very solution based, because there was so much fear and anger and worry going on at the time. People really needed a place to come get grounded and just focus on the solution. Because the fear was coming from everywhere. And if you let it affect you, it would run its course, and people started relapsing and dying because of that. But the meeting, at least, it gave people an opportunity to come and just focus on the solution, because the fear, it's within me if I let it happen. But what do I do with it? The anger is within me, but what do I do with it? It's not about the fear and the anger. It's what is the solution to deal with it? How do I bring this to God? How do I talk about this? How do I relate it to the steps? And we continue to do that. In this meeting, even today, is I just keep seeing people come in and just make extraordinary changes. And it's got nothing to do with us, because we just carry the message that's in the book, but it's very, it's just not diluted. And people are understanding it when this solution is just so direct and how we've applied it to our lives with our experience. And that's, we just keep bringing that every night. And, you know, so many other guys are on there bringing that message every night. And without fail, I mean, people are naturally just leveling up and staying grounded within the program.
Yeah, that meeting's just been a lifesaver. I was telling Bernie earlier today, you know, how many people I've seen change their life. That meeting got started 9 months ago. Mm-hmm. Still running today, right? 7 days a week, 8:30 every night. And it's helped so many people, man. The faces have changed, but there's still a solid core group that keep coming. But the message, like you say, because it's based in the solution of our literature, it just keeps bringing it every night. And new people keep coming, and we watch them level up. And it's fucking an amazing thing. Like, it's actually saving people's lives. Mm-hmm. And I don't know how many calls you've gotten. I know I've gotten tons of calls of people just so grateful for this podcast, for the meeting, for, you know, a little bit of dedication to service. And I always went outside myself to try to fulfill what was wrong inside. But I've learned through the steps that, you know, my very life as an ex-problem drinker depends on my constant thought of others and how I may help meet their needs. And through the meeting needs of others, I get my fulfillment and I find my purpose. And like, fuck, it's fucking amazing how this stuff has worked in my life and your life and Bernie's and everybody else's that is actually doing the harder part, because it is hard, right? It's not easy to fucking let this shit go. It's not easy to forgive somebody that's done something seemingly to you. But I think that's part of the healing, understanding what it is that you think someone did to you, but the healing is in there and building the strength and the courage and the fortitude through that experience with Creator by our side allows us to heal through those seemingly negative experiences. And I think that's part of like the purpose in life, really, right? So yeah, dude, I'm fucking stoked about everything.
Well, Bernie, I want to thank you so much for coming on here today, sharing your experience, being as humble as you are. It's really something to aspire to. And you know, is there anything you want to leave us off with before we end the podcast?
Maybe what you're up to, or you want anyone out there to know about what you're doing or where to find you, or...
Well, I'm not on any social media. I'm pretty low key.
It's probably why you're so grounded.
Well, I really know what's going on in the world. I see it. And again, like, I really pay attention. I paid attention in those early stages of recovery from the sponsors as well as, you know, the elders that I connected with. I really did pay attention that I said, stay away from that stuff, you know, because again, we talked about learned behavior, you know, and if I'm hearing all that stuff, what's going on in the world constantly, I'm retraining my brain to be chaotic again. And I had enough chaos in my life, and I kind of want something different. Yeah, so I guess I don't know, putting myself out there. Other than through this podcast, you know, if there really is need some sort of connection, I'm sure Bill or Tom can advocate, you know, to a certain degree. You know, myself, I just won't really put that out there. But if there's something that's desperately needed for further conversation, on another note, I'm sure Bill will advocate. So, or Tom.
Is there any value in us talking about Creation Lodge?
Oh, geez, that's a whole different... Well, that's a part of work that I do. It's basically, it's a very unique position. I work within the greater city of Calgary, and well, a little bit about Creation Lodge. It's about revitalizing the old laws. And what exactly does that mean? You know, through oral storytelling, traditional Native storytelling, as we believe that they are our basic life skills, and through those old ancient narrative oral storytellings through knowledge keepers. I don't do that myself, but I find people, before the whole thing with COVID happened, we would host meetings within the inner city with many of the outreach centers, and we would host events and then provide through these stories education for the vulnerable sector. I really don't like using that word vulnerable sector because yes, and the vulnerable sector primarily is mostly Native people, First Nations people that are in the streets of Calgary and most major cities. But really vulnerable, I think vulnerable is such a really, I don't really like using that because we're all vulnerable to a certain extent, right? So anyways, like I talked about revitalizing those old laws, because for many, many years, we've utilized a lot of those old laws from Western pedagogy, right? From the church, different thoughts and church beliefs. But a lot of people believe that, there are different alternatives, whether it is through Eastern meditation and Buddhism, a lot of different, the real Indian people from across the seas, their belief system and so on and so forth. But, this is on this part of the continent with those ancient stories. And through those ancient stories, there's healing, there's education. Again, I talked about there is that non-interference. Through talking about this non-interference, it allows the people to take these stories, like we talk in the program, to take it and take what we need and leave the rest kind of thing, and to learn from them through all these supernaturals. All these supernaturals were fallible, that they've done a lot of the things, they've kind of set the pavement for us with what not to do. And if we learn from them, well, those similar experiences are going to happen to us too, because they've done it before. And then there were consequences. So, yeah.
Amazing. Well, again, okay, so I guess what we'll do is we're going to I'll give you our email for the Fellowship of the Spirit, Design for Living. So it's fosdfl@gmail.com. So if you have any feedback about the podcast today, or you have any questions for Bernie or Bill or myself, definitely shoot us an email through that email. So it's fosdfl@gmail.com. And recently it was on my heart to rebrand my company. And so I went from Table 40, now is the Forsyth Group Recovery. So my details have changed on Instagram. So it's forsythgroup.recovery. And my email address is my website is forsythgroup.ca. Bill, where are you at?
I'm at all social media platforms at Bill Ward Life or billward.life. YouTube, Spotify, Patreon, Facebook, Instagram, my website, and Anchor, and whatever else. So I'm out there. I fucking just want to help. Hit me up.
So it was definitely an honor to have Bernie on here today. I really appreciate all that you're doing. Really have a lot of gratitude for what you're doing and being here with us today.
Thanks, Bernie.
Thanks, all guys. Really appreciate it.
All right, so thanks for listening, everybody. And if you know anybody who could benefit from this episode, please share it with them. And if you like what you heard today, please follow us. We'd love to have you as a follower, and just to continue to get updated when we post new episodes and all that. So thanks for listening, everybody.